Hello and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us.
Hiya.
Hi.
We're getting into autumn now.
Oh, it's getting a bit colder.
It's going to be time for a gingerbread latte before you know it.
Oh, God. Yeah, great.
And Christmas is in stores already. I mean,
Yeah.
It has been in some stores since, August?
Yeah.
And I've said it already, I love this time of year, so I do not mind it in stores that early. Like, I'm not one of those people being like, oh, why is Christmas already in stores? It just gets me super excited about what's to come.
Very, very festive.
And it's that time of the year where retailers go all out. They don't call it the golden quarter for nothing.
Yeah.
So Halloween's just around the corner. Sales are in full flow. In fact, by now, you would be looking at your sell through quite closely.
Yes.
So,
Small window.
yeah, is it Yeah. So is it where you need it to be? Have you bought enough stock to maximise your sales? Are you running low on anything you should have backed bigger?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you tracking behind where you need to be? Have you bought in too heavily in a particular line or stock in general? Like, did you think Halloween would be as big as it is in the US this year? I mean, let's face it, they do it so big.
Yeah, and they have a history with it, don't they? They have it's part of their seasonal calendar
It
in a
is.
massive way.
I would love to experience it. One of my friends is actually just back from the States. So she moved out there with her family for 5 years this time last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really hoping to visit this year, but it's a long story. They're already back. But I was so excited to go and see it this October. Her Instagram last year was unreal.
Yeah.
For like both Halloween and Christmas, actually. Like they're genuinely, I thought it was just in the movies, but there genuinely is a lane called Candy Cane Lane, and all of the houses are like lit up and have like these most fantastic like decor on the outside. It's incredible.
Wow.
But anyway, back to Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite funny, isn't it, how we go over there and we look at it and we think, oh my God, such an opportunity for the UK. But it just doesn't quite land, does it? Every year you think, oh, that's where my growth could come from a seasonal category. But I do think I've started to see some shoots of growth, though, in terms of from an outdoor decorative point of view. Like it is slightly starting to get a bit bigger.
Do you know what? I think it started around where I am anyway. I think it started to. And then I hate to bring it up because I feel like we mention it all the time and it's just on all the headlines. But I think the cost of living crisis last year, in particular, I noticed a lot less decorations outside for Halloween and for Christmas. Less people putting out Christmas lights and things like that.
Yeah.
I think I love it. I love having, like, our house is covered in lights. You can probably imagine 1st of December. Light it up.
Here we are.
And I love the idea of doing more for Halloween. I don't yet, but I think I will. But what I don't like about it is the throwawayness of it.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
you know, like that cobwebby stuff
Oh yeah.
that you sell in droves.
You can just imagine that in the ocean,
Can't you?
Oh,
It's really
God,
sad.
no.
Whereas I'm all for like decor that you'll bring out year in, year out,
yeah.
and decorating it, because it doesn't need to be new each year on your house. Just the
No.
fact that it's decorated is exciting.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, so hopefully everybody's got their Christmas in stores now.
Fingers crossed. It's very, very difficult to work out when things are going to land these days. But with the pirates and the shipping times, and
It's just an ongoing nightmare, isn't it,
It is.
shipping?
it is. It's but you know, I think the seasonal categories in retail are so tricky. Like it is a really hard gig on seasonal. I think on one hand, you're in and out of ranges, which is great. So you don't have to really think too much about continuity, which can be quite hard to plan for like all year round ranges. But but you also have such a short window. If something doesn't work, then you've got literally next to no time to get out of it. And, you know, it affects the buy for the next year because you've got all that stock to carry over that just hasn't sold. Or, you know, you're pretty much discounting it at such a huge
can be painful
margin implication that you then don't meet your targets for that year.
Yeah, if it doesn't sell through, it's going to hit you whatever, isn't it? Like, you kind of need to work out what's my better scenario to get all my stores to box up and then to find somewhere to hold it, whether that be in their stock rooms, which is unlikely because in order to maximise your sales of your retail store, you're unlikely to have giant warehouses at the back.
Nope.
So therefore you're going to need to like get it back to the warehouse, the DC, and then actually do you have space with all the new ranges you've already placed to hold it there, or are you going to need to outsource and send it to another warehouse to keep it there where you're paying rent?
Yeah.
So like none of it's like
an ideal scenario.
You're like, what is the lesser of
2, 3, 4, 5 evils?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it can be, but on the other hand, it can be an amazing category to work on from if you're performing point of view. Like, it's such a buzz to be like, oh my god, I've just sold through that already, and I was only anticipating, you know,
and you don't have the pressure
40% sell through at this point, and it's at 80 already,
and you don't have the pressure of having to like suddenly repeat it and negotiate and get those production times
because you just put it back in the range.
There just isn't the time to do it within that time frame, so you just forward plan for the next year. Anyway, back to today's episode. So we thought, as we're going into the busiest period of a retailer's trading calendar, it'd be a good time to talk about the reality of retail. Like, to talk about how much retail's changed over the past decade or so.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the impact of the pandemic.
I know. It feels like such a long time ago now, doesn't it? But we are still feeling the
effects. Yeah. Well, it was huge, wasn't it? And it's not something we should forget about. I mean, I think at first we definitely didn't want to keep remembering. And anyone said the C word or the P word, no. No one wanted to talk about it. But I don't think we can forget about it or should forget about it. Like, it was a massive moment in our careers. Like, it was, and I think I can say this word again now too, because the overuse has quietened down a bit, but it was unprecedented.
Gosh, I was wondering what word you were going to come out with then. I was like,
I feel like that was like
literally in the dictionary for every single Monday morning.
Yeah, most used word of 2020 and 2021.
For sure.
Right, so let's take this back to when we first started in retail. Well, actually, when we first met, not when we first started in retail, because I think we both started working retail from the moment that we could start working so that we could get that clothing discount.
Definitely. My first job in Zara as a clothing assistant.
River Island over here. But we both graduated and started working in buying around the kind of 2008-2009 financial crisis, which at the time was seen as like the worst economic downturn of the since the 1930s.
Yeah.
So we've not really known anything different other than like stories that we've been told. I remember buyers telling me about the glam high life that they used to have. Do you remember they used to have a drinks trolley that came around the office?
Yes, and at M&S I think they used to have a hairdresser.
Oh, I remember my tutors telling me stories as well about the fabulousness of fashion buying, and they made it sound like such like just sought after high flying career, which it's enjoyable, don't get me wrong, and I have loved going into it, but it's not been smooth sailing ever.
No.
Like, when we first met, one of my first memories of like starting out and being part of that like competitive retail landscape was being the jewel in the crown. Like, the sales for the sister brand weren't coming through quite as expected or as hoped, and we were having to work even harder to cover the sales gap. So I don't although I remember our sales being good, I don't remember there being that like, well done, sales are great,
saving the company,
because it was saving the company, and it was like they're not good enough almost, because they need to cover even higher. So yes, you're seeing growth. My God, these days you would be like desperate to see those kind of numbers. But we took them for granted a bit because it was just like, yeah, it's good.
I felt like that was kind of like a bit of a, almost like a, what do you call it, a false sense of security starting there because our sales were always so good. Like, it's, I don't know if it's been a blessing or a hindrance really, because again, when sales are so good, it gives you that boost to do more because there's so much more opportunity because you're like, oh, well, that's selling, so I could move that into this and
yeah.
We didn't really have that struggle.
There wasn't a limit. No, you could sample whatever you wanted, and if you came up with a new idea, well, just try it. Why not? Like, yeah, we've got the support and the structure to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There were certain categories that didn't work, that weren't that great, and they had to try and work out how to catch up with the rest of us, and that was really hard to see. You always wanted to work on two different departments. They were the hero departments, and yeah, I think you're right. We haven't known it like as good as they had it, where they could just really buy anything.
Yeah, and like there are so many people that have risen to the top that basically just rode the wave of success of just the rise of consumerism.
Yes, exactly.
They don't really know how to flex and pivot and turn things around
and strategize
because they've been so used to success, and then that's been quite difficult then when they're the driving force of a company and they've never experienced these kind of problems and they're throwing it to you. And sometimes then you start to think, well, if you've got all this experience, shouldn't you be imparting your knowledge on us?
Yeah.
But they've not had to deal with these situations, and now actually they're not as close to the product, so it makes it harder for them to understand all the intricacies and the levers that they could pull. So it does fall to you.
Yeah. You are more integral to the business than ever before.
Yeah.
At that level, yeah.
And it's really important for your skill set, like to be able to handle these kind of challenges.
Yeah. I think that's why those people in those senior roles, when the pandemic hit, just really had no idea how to handle it.
Because they never had before.
Because they never had to before.
And once you get to a certain point, you aren't part of all the nitty-gritty of it all. You're not in the detail. And things change.
Yeah.
We've just been talking about technology advancements and things change so quickly. And then if you're not dealing with it day to day, then how do you come up with a solution when you don't really know what the issue is?
Yeah.
Or what you can adjust to find a solution. And sometimes it can be infuriating when some of the suggestions can be quite old school.
Yeah. And a lot of the pandemic, the issues that retailers had to deal with was shipping. And it was like the first point where shipping filtered down to the consumer as to what. Like, I think it's probably one of the first moments of that consumers or customers really understood that things were actually being shipped in.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're used to the product just appearing in the shelves.
Yeah.
And no one thought about how it got there. No one needed to think about how it got there.
Why would you? And you wouldn't market that. You wouldn't glamorise that, would you?
No.
It's really interesting that, suddenly, like, you're talking to your neighbour or your hairdresser or your, I don't know, someone not in the industry, and they're suddenly coming out with all this chat that you're like, hang on a minute, how do you know about that now?
Yeah.
Like, it was really interesting, wasn't it? And I think also people at the top, you have departments for everything in most big retailers, don't you? And they don't need to know the nitty gritty of all of that kind of stuff.
They shouldn't have to. In fact, it's infuriating when they want to try and get involved in every single bit. Stay in your lane. But I have to say, one of the benefits of it, is really important for your skill set to be able to handle these huge challenges. And the age-old saying, "What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger."
Yeah, 100%.
But you do need your critical thinking. Did you do that subject actually at school?
Critical thinking?
Yeah.
No.
No? At school?
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking. Yeah, you either did general studies
Oh,
or
we
you
had
did,
general studies, but not critical
or you did
thinking.
critical thinking.
the
Anyway,
moment.
as I remember, it was then like expected that the economy would like improve and shoppers would revert to like their old habits. And there was a real push to get back to like normal.
Yeah.
And this is talking like post-financial crisis, not post-pandemic, because let's face it, post-pandemic, there is no normal.
No.
It's the new normal.
Mm.
But after that period, we saw a real rise of like the fast fashion and discount chains. Like they were
Yes.
already bubbling, like they were already
Well,
rising
we
in
were
the
already
noughties, weren't
starting
they?
to think like that. The accessories company that we were at, like from a fast fashion point of view,
Yeah.
like fast lead time.
How can we improve it? How can we get it into stores quicker? Yeah. How do we place things faster? Air freight was never a problem. Air freight it.
It was like, how much is the product? What retail price? Are you sea or air freighting? Like those were the conversations.
Yeah.
It was
I just-
never like assumed it would be sea.
No. And you'd air freight it. I think every repeat would be air freight. Air freight. Air freight it.
100%.
Air freight. And actually, to be fair, it had already started. Like, I remember the excitement of like, that was around the time that those big Primarks were opening. So you already had the small ones, but this was like the rise of the ones on like Oxford Street. You had one at each end, didn't you? One Tottenham Court Road and one Marble Arch.
Oh, yeah.
Which still are there to this day. But I do remember when they opened, it was so exciting and like having to get down there and like, you know, sense check where they were. Like it definitely brought on some price wars.
Oh, yeah.
That was the main aim of a lot of the comp shops. It was less about new product and it was more about price.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, since then, customers have become more and more and more price savvy.
Yeah.
And like we've got the advancements in technology to encourage it, haven't we? Like I have to say, like I am always these days doing a bit of a Google search.
Yeah.
Like I want to
Google compare, yeah.
yeah, just for something to come up. I use it more and more and more because you want to get the best deal, and also you've been used to getting the best deals. I was actually thinking the other day, I was looking at my emails, and I've had less frequent promotions from a lot of retailers, which I think is a good place to be, because I was definitely becoming a lot more reliant. Like I wouldn't buy something in season because I'd be like, well, I know it's going to go into sale and I don't need it right now.
Yeah.
I'll wait until it goes into sale. And it's actually quite nice that to see less companies doing that. I mean, not from a personal point of view, but just as a general thing, it's nicer to see that less places are being so competitive with their prices.
And that was like, and also during that time, it was like kind of like the not birthplace, but when Amazon started to really start to rack up.
Definitely. And I am not like, I mean, that the growth of Amazon has forever changed the retail landscape.
100%.
Like they have an option now for almost every single product category possible, and it's at low prices, and they even hook customers in with like subscription programs or membership programs, like quick and cheaper than ever delivery options.
Yeah.
So I think customers like do now want products at their fingertips instantly. Like it's become an expectation really, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean they've led the way for that, haven't they? Do you think that mindsets are shifting though?
Yeah, and I think it's been quite nice to see a bit of a backlash on Amazon recently, like a bit of a pushback as like customers start to realise that like it isn't sustainable, like from both ways, an economic and a natural sort of like perspective.
And they've been obviously hit by lots of news articles about how they treat their staff in the warehouses and things like that. Like,
It's just not sustainable for one retail giant to offer every single product at rock bottom prices and turn it around that quickly. Like it's just not like, and I think as we said in our last season, like we want to see a bit of a return to a slower pace of life, like more considered shopping habits, like buying less, more investment in quality and people.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rise of circular fashion, return to make do and mend.
Make do and mend.
I love that. Although I have to say, I think both of us will admit that with increasingly busy lives, we've both been known to rely on Amazon.
Yeah.
Sometimes just to save the day.
I mean, I think it's something that people will find hard to take out of their lives now, you know. For example, I use it for buying tennis balls for Finley because he gets through them like
super quickly.
Yeah. And if I'm running out of some shampoo and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have time to go to the shops to buy this and I need it because I need to wash my hair tomorrow.
Yeah, I just need it to come.
I need it to come.
I don't have time to wait.
So I think it's that sort of thing for me that I find hard to take out of my life. But I need to get better at being more organised and going and buying it from the supermarket and going and buying it from independent salons and things like that. Because I'd love to support. I love to support
those.
Local a hell of a lot more.
It is hard because, like, with the advancement of this tech, like, life is supercharged. Like, you're trying to fit in more than ever you have before into a day. You feel the pressure to always be on. Like, I mean, in another context, like, always be contactable. Like, you feel bad if you don't reply to a friend instantly.
Yeah.
Or, like, at least within 24 hours. Like, especially when they can see you've read their message, you know? There's this, like, expectation that you're firing on all cylinders at all time. And if you're not being productive, you feel like it's dead time. And you just feel guilty, don't you?
You do.
But anyway, back to reality. The changes that we've seen over the past 20 years, like, have been the fastest progression in retail yet. Like, and if we really think about it, tech is at the forefront of everything. Like, it's only going to continue to change even more quickly, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it's starting in the factories, isn't it? As they're bringing in more, robotic production facilities. Like, it's starting at the point of manufacturing and then linking in with all the consumer data that we've got. It is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because everybody just wants to be more efficient.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing because being more productive leads to more profit.
Waste.
And less waste, exactly. But I do miss the days of just going into a store and just, like, having a wander around. Do you know what I mean? Like, you used to spend days out shopping and, like, you just browse from store to store. Whereas, like, now, again, I don't know if it's just because, like, I'm in a different point of my life, but, like, I do find that a lot more browsing's now online, like, before you head out.
Yeah.
So you go
already know what you want to pick up.
Yeah, you go to fewer stores because you're a bit like, oh, well, I've been online and there wasn't anything there that I liked, so I'm not going to bother.
Yeah.
That said, I do a lot of browsing online, but I don't do as much shopping. Like, I do like to go and check a product. I feel like I've been, like, maybe not surprised and delighted a few times when I've ordered online and it's arrived and I'm like, I'm useless for checking sizes and specs. I just don't bother. I'm just like, oh, that looks nice, and I order it, and then it comes and it's like a fraction of the size, and I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. Or, like, so much bigger than I was expecting it to be. But yeah, I'm definitely one of those ones that's like returning to stores. Like, I enjoy going back in, having, like, the touch and the feel of it. But I think that's probably music to retailers' ears too, because I think many have found that actually it's a lot less profitable to operate online versus, like, a bricks and mortar. Like we've seen shipping costs return, so free delivery thresholds have increased. And there's actually fewer options for free returns, which really bugged me at first, but I've kind of got used to it.
Yeah.
And it does reduce the amount I spend.
Actually,
Like, I used to overbuy to meet the free delivery threshold.
Yeah,
and then
which
just
is why
they've
had to put it in there.
So they've had to, because it was just clearly wasn't just me doing it. It was me and the rest of the UK.
But that's probably a result of the pandemic, isn't it? You know, because everybody had moved online. We had to. You couldn't buy anything else in any other way. So people were doing that even more and more and more. So companies need to recoup back what they've lost from that.
Should we take a minute to talk pandemic?
Yeah, I feel like it's like you need to give it like a 2-minute silence or something. God. It was just such a difficult time.
Let's reflect on what it was like working in retail when suddenly the whole world came to a stop.
Yep.
And the budget expectations afterwards, like, I know that's something Merchies in particular found incredibly frustrating. And can we mention Maid?
Yes, exactly. I think that's a really good example of it, isn't it? I think that I've seen it firsthand out in factories where they've got like all this stock backed up because companies like Made have gone under because they've just gone and expected the same level of growth year on year. And, you know, we sort of jumped to the conclusion that that's what happened with Made. But you see other retailers doing it as well. You know, it's just a baffling strategy for me to get behind personally, and I can't really understand how that would have got signed off either, because how can you follow unprecedented growth?
Well, yeah, I think people just got overexcited, didn't they, by the huge growth, and then they just thought, oh, this is going to continue, and so therefore they were like, yeah, this is great. Like, you know, we've made our name and we're big. Everyone knows about us. Then we're going to have more and more customers, and they're thinking about more customers. They've seen X number of new customers join. They've got a high level of acquisition, and therefore they're expecting to just see that continue. And so then they've overbought and are sitting on too much of the wrong stock.
I think that's a really interesting point that you make about companies in the pandemic gained so many customers. Certain companies, certain industries gained so many customers. But they then went away the next year. Quite a lot of them did, actually. Because they didn't have that need anymore.
They didn't have
maybe not the next year, the year after, because it did obviously continue for a while.
And it's an element of need, but it's also this, like, you can't just acquire. You know, if you're just focused on acquisition, you're going to run out. You need to also focus on retention.
Yeah, 100%.
So yes, you can get new customers, but you also need to make sure that you are keeping those customers that you have got involved. And how are you going to keep them coming back? I mean, I think so many stores have got, like, actually the frequency of customer visits is actually a lot lower than you think it is.
Yeah. And just as quickly as you can acquire, you can lose if you don't hold the retention. And the retention was so key, wasn't it? That was where probably the money should have been spent on salary and data on how to retain those customers. Because you got them overnight. Yeah.
You were so lucky to get them in. Yeah. They filled your bucket, and then I'm sure I've heard this term a few places. It becomes a leaky bucket.
Oh, interesting.
Do you know what I mean? If you're not making sure that you're kind of, if you don't maintain it, then you're going to get holes in your bucket, and people are just going to drop out, and you're going to lose them. So, should we just have a really quick retail therapy, because I feel like we need it at this point.
Let's do it. Right, what have we got today? Okay, this one is very much about the pandemic. Okay.
I'm excited.
I was in trade after we'd just gone into the first lockdown. Panic filled the Teams call. Yeah, because everyone had to jump on Teams call. That's probably like the first Teams trade we've ever done. You know,
suddenly you had to become very au fait with Teams. Yeah. The company I was working for had nothing set up like that.
Same. We just started using Teams, but I'm really bad. I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to technology. And, you know, everyone had sort of seen it and had a little bit of an induction on it, but we weren't in any way using it. But thank God we'd had that.
I know. And talking of dinosaurs, I think half of the team at the place I was working at the time was still on desktops. Oh, so there was a rush round to get them laptops.
Yes. if you weren't furloughed.
Yeah, let alone Teams. I know. Sorry, exactly. Anyway, we digress.
All right.
Start from the top.
Right, let's start from the top. Okay. I was in trade after we'd just gone into the first lockdown. Panic filled the Teams call as we all knew how much stock was due to arrive that coming week as we entered our peak point of the season.
Oh, God.
It had just been announced that stores were having to close that same week, with no real idea of when they could reopen. Crisis plans or brainstorms to describe it better began to be discussed. My trading director, who clearly had been up all weekend plotting with the CEO, had a crazy idea that we were all to contact the shipping companies and ask them to turn the boats around. We all had no words.
Oh, hello, is that the captain? Hello. Could you...
Is that Maersk? Is it Maersk? Hello, Mask. Am I through to customer services?
Bag Lloyd, could you turn the boat around? Which boat, you ask? Oh, sorry, do you have more than one? That's the most ridiculous.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me just
Turn
check.
the boat around.
Literally, I think that's just short, like one short of asking a helicopter to take the container off, right?
Genuinely cannot believe that. Oh God! But you reading that gave me flashbacks of all the stock that was arriving, as you say, and then like coming to the ports. But like literally everything just closed overnight. So suddenly, like boats are like just stranded wherever. They're not turning back. They're just stopping. They're there.
Yeah.
And then like stock would be like halfway, like off a boat, and then it would just be stuck on the port, or it would have just got into the warehouse. And then it would just be there and not processed. And God, an absolute minefield of like, where is my stock?
Yes. Like, is it on a boat? Is it at a port?
Yeah.
Is it in a lorry? Is it in a car park?
What can I do? Yeah.
Is it just off the M4?
Is it in a lay-by?
Who knows?
Yeah. And then just that sudden stopping of production.
Yeah.
And let's not even go into starting it back up again. Do you know what? I mean, if I'm really honest, I just feel like
stressed.
I feel really stressed. I feel like we might have to park it. Just thinking about how much we've chatted already about this. Like, I'm sure we'll revisit it again throughout because you can't ignore it. And now we feel comfortable with saying those words. Pandemic.
Yeah.
COVID. Unprecedented. Got them all out. So, to round up, it's quite a roller coaster. Retail's tough right now.
Yeah.
But there's never been a better time to get involved, either with an established retailer or growing your own retail business. Like there's been such a growth of new independent retailers.
So exciting.
It's so exciting, isn't it? And I just think in general it is fascinating. It is often challenging. And it's ever changing. And I think that's what's interesting about the retail landscape.
Yeah.
And I think as we've been discussing, like, we live in an omni-channel world with global data at our fingertips, and retail's going through like an evolution. Like it's about being different and standing out from the crowd and being adaptable. It's the perfect time to embrace change and to keep evolving, like stay ahead of the market and future-proof your business.
Yeah.
But it does take confidence to make those brave decisions. And we want to equip you with all of the tips and tools and templates and help you to feel focused and empowered and increase your efficiencies and drive that profitable growth. I mean, in summary, we want to help you discover your full potential.
Yeah.
Be clear on your vision, your purpose, and to stand out from the crowd. So visit www.buyingandbeyond.com or at buyingandbeyond on Instagram and drop us a message to see how we can work together and support you at whatever stage of the career you're in. And on that note, here are our top 3 takeaways from this episode.
Number 1, challenges only make us stronger. It might feel awful at the time, but it really does enhance your skill set to work your way through the difficult times. It's how you embrace these and find solutions, although let's hope there's not going to be another pandemic anytime soon.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Number 2, it's crucial for brands to turn their stores into destinations. Consumers want to spend time in a whole store experience with extra services that make it a place you want to go to. And number 3, there's still a huge amount of change to come for retail. Change is happening at a faster rate than ever with the ever-developing technologies. It's exciting and terrifying, but we need to embrace the positives and focus on how it can improve productivity and profitability.
So as we said earlier, next week we are planning a super fun episode where we will talk all about brand identity with some absolute marketing and styling superstars. See you then. Bye.
Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No,
Drama just makes things interesting.
that's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.